Okay, good morning, Miss Hidayah. So today we'll be presenting about our article review for security analysis and portfolio management assignment 1. My name is Ricky Kyle, and this is my fellow colleague, that is Prisha Sivaraj. I'll be presenting for the first article, and the first article is titled The Impact of Dividend Policy on Share Market, Volatility in the Malaysian Stock Market. The introduction. The title of the journal, like I said, and the researchers' name are Muhammad Hashim, who studied at Multimedia University from Malaysia, Arif Mahadavi, who studied in Multimedia as well, Nijat, who studied in Multimedia University, and the journal was published in 2012. It is a volume 4 and is Journal of Business Studies Quarterly. The purpose of the study was to examine the relationship between dividend policy and share price volatility with a focus on consumer product companies listed in Malaysian stock market. For this purpose, a sample of 84 companies from 142 consumer product companies listed in main market of Bursa Malaysia were selected, and the relationship between share price volatility with two main measurement of dividend policy, dividend yield and payout, were examined by applying multiple regression for a period of 6 years from 2005 to 2010. Next, okay. The problems were, number 1, the irrelevance of dividend policy, relevance of dividend policy based on uncertainty of future dividends, relevance of dividend policy based on clientele effects, impacts of dividend policy on a firm's risk, impact of dividend policy on share price volatility. Okay, review of the literature. The cited sources are relevant to the study, and the cited sources are backed up with relevant articles and journals. The review is somewhat clear and concise. The reviews that were stated were also backed up with relevant articles and journals. The references were not recent. The oldest reference taken were dated in 1957 by Linter.J. Distribution of incomes of corporations among dividends, retained earnings, and taxes, the American Economic Review. The most recent article was in 2011 by Husseini K. Magbaim, and the title of the reference was Dividend Policy and Share Price Volatility, UK Evidence, Journal of Risk Finance. Okay, there was no evidence of bias, as the results that were given on or the discussion that were made came up with a valid point of references which were related to the findings. Okay, design and procedures. Study of Baskin 1989 shapes the theoretical framework of the study by applying the correlation analysis and multiple least square regression. The association between share price volatility and dividend policy is analyzed. It was an original study based on a sample from Bursa Malaysia with 84 companies from 142 consumer product companies from year 2005 to 2010. The measurement tools that were used are the measurement tools that were used for the study are extracted from Bursa Malaysia and ISI emerging markets. SPSS statistics software version 17.0 is used for analysis in this study. 84 companies from 142 consumer product manufacturing companies listed in main board of Kuala Lumpur Stock Market Exchange, KLSE, from 2005 to 2010 have been selected as sample for this study. Pilot study was conducted at the outcome of every stage. They could find dividend yield and regression based on the formulas that were applied. The variables are, number 1, share price volatility and dividend yield, share price volatility and payout ratio. The sampling was performed in 2 ways that are statistical description of variables, correlation analysis amongst variables. Okay, then data analysis and presentation. Oh, shoot. Okay, this study was analyzed on share price volatility with a focus on consumer product companies listed in the Malaysian stock market. For this purpose, sample of 84 companies from 142 consumer product companies listed in the main market of Bursa Malaysia was selected, and the influence of dividend yield and dividend payout on share price volatility was examined by applying multiple regression for a period of 6 years from 2005 to 2010. The primary regression model was expanded by adding control variables, including size, earning, volatility, leverage, debt, and growth. Okay, conclusion and implication. These studies' aim was to investigate the impact of dividend policy on share price volatility with a focus on consumer product companies listed in the Malaysian stock market. For this purpose, a sample of 84 companies from 142 consumer product companies listed in the main market of Bursa were selected, and the influence of dividend yield and dividend payout on share price volatility was examined by applying multiple regression for the period of 6 years from 2005 to 2010. The primary regression model was expanded by adding control variables, including size, earning, volatility, leverage, debt, and growth. The empirical results of the study was related to the original purpose, as it showed a significant negative relationship between share price volatility with the two main measurements of dividend policy, which are dividend yield and payout. This result provides strong supporting evidence for Baskin 1989, in which share price volatility and dividend yield as well as dividend payout are having significant association. Based on the results of the study, it can be concluded that managers of companies may be able to change their volatility of their share price by altering their dividend policy. Indeed, it may be possible for them to use a dividend policy as a device for controlling their share price volatility. They may be able to reduce their share price volatility by increasing their dividend payout. Okay, that's all from me. Next is my... Okay.
So for my article 2, the title of the article is Relationship between Macroeconomics Variables and Stock Market Index, Co-integration Evidence from FTSE Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index. So the title of the journal is, as I said, and the researchers' name are Mirza and Hashim. Both of them are from Lim Kok Kwing University of Creative Technology, Malaysia. The journal was published in October 2013. Its volume is 2, number 4, and it's the Journal of Management, Science and Education. This paper examines the long-term equilibrium relationship between selected macroeconomics variable and the FTSE Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index. The paper identifies a co-integrating relationship with the identification of the exogeneity and endogeneity of the variables. All individual stocks are affected by common factors. Market indexes can be affected by macroeconomics variables such as changes in interest rate, money supply, economic growth, and inflation. Macroeconomic factors such as interest rate, inflation, unemployment, and economic growth often move stock markets. Stock markets are always rooting for more economic growth because it is usually means more profit for the company, and more profit tend to grow the value of stocks. So the problems that we encountered in these articles are exchange rate, consumer price index, money supply, and interest rate. So the review of the literature is the cited sources are relevant to the study, and the cited sources are backed up with the relevant articles and journals. The review is somewhat clear and concise. The reviews that were stated are also backed up with relevant articles and journals. The references were not recent. The oldest reference taken were dated in Hamburger, MJ, Cochin, Money and Stock Prices, the Channel of Influence, the Journal of Finance, and the most recent article was by Hussein S.M. Ahmad with the title of The Role of Macroeconomics Variables on Stock Market Index in China and India. There were no evidence of bias, as the results that were given of discussion that were made came with a valid point of reference which were made related to the findings. So design and procedures is the study will use time series technique to evaluate objective. The microfit software is used for this method. By using time series technique, this study will try to find out what factors are co-integrated with FTSE Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index. It is an original study and the data used here are monthly data starting from September 2006 to September 2012. The length of data is limited by Sharia Index as the FTSE Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index only goes back to 2006. This study will use time series technique to evaluate objective. The data of the subsequent research is spread over monthly observation 2006 to 2012 with a total of 72 months. The data for the variables has mainly been sourced from the historical archives of the FTSE Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index. In the case of exchange rate, the Kleber Malaysia rate, they are obtained from Malaysian Central Bank and their official month closing figures. The data for money supply and CPI were the pilot study was conducted at the outcome of every stage. Their findings were based on the co-integration test, Engel-Grager test, and Johansen test. The variables are money supply, consumer price index, interest rate, and exchange rate. So the conclusion and implication. The main objective of the study is to investigate the relationship between FTSE Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index and macroeconomics variable in Malaysia, as well as visibility of using FTSE Bursa Malaysia to forecast economic outlook. For the analysis above, it can be concluded that the macroeconomics variables, which are interest rate, money supply, consumer price index, and exchange rate, is statistically shows a significant relationship with money supply, interest rate, and exchange rate. That is in the line of finding of Ibrahim in year 2003, who utilized the conventional stock index with a set of almost similar variables. The importance of this study can be vast and valuable in numerous angles. Firstly, for the policy makers, and they need to understand the impact of the policies on the FTSE Bursa Malaysia Hijrah Sharia Index. Secondly, for investors, as they need to understand how the market will move given certain changes in the macroeconomics environment. Lastly, for researchers in the field of to estimate the impact of policies and predict future movement of FTSE Bursa Malaysia, as well as the difference in conventional indexes to the Sharia indices given to the same macroeconomics condition.
Okay, so for recommendation, the overall assessment of the journal is that the information and the research that were made has valid citations and proof to back it up. Other than that, it also provided a strong argumentative that further strengthened the issues and the problems that were made. However, all the studies have their own limitation, and what we have learned is to ensure future studies can be built stronger. For example, the second journal had critical limitation of the study of the lack of sufficient time to digress the causality between different combination of the variables.
Based on the two articles that we have reviewed, we would say that both articles carry a series of importance and both have their own strengths. For example, the first article talked about negative relationship between share price volatility with two main measurements of dividend policy, which are dividend yield and payout, which can benefit managers on companies and so on. What can we conclude from here is we should therefore brace ourselves for a lot more stock market volatility into 2021. This will likely shake out the reluctant bulls, those who only recently put their cash on work in equities and at the exact wrong time. Based on history, investors should hold tight and keep eye on the longer term. The second year of new bull market historically performs quite well overall, though it's tend to be more gut-wrenching along the way. So that is all from us. Thank you.
So that's why lah. Tengoklah nanti. Okay. Nanti snap Sekejap your friends ni. Tak nak present banyak macam reason nak bagi kat saya. Okay, now. Prisha, for article 1, can you differentiate dividend yield and dividend payout? Can you explain back to me what's the difference between dividend yield and dividend payout? Tak ada dalam slide pun.
Oh.
Okay, for dividend yield,
then variable.
Okay, for dividend yield is a dividend expressed as a percentage of a current share price. And for dividend payout, Maybe it's the ratio of the proportion of earning payout through dividends to shareholders. Typically also
Okay,
as
Hmm.
percentage.
okay, Ricky, can you list out again microeconomic variable that have been mentioned by Prisha in the article too that have
Kejap
been used?
Kat sini mana tadi? Oh ni. Exchange rate, consumer price index, money supply and interest rate.
No, it's not like in here, but it's okay.
Oh, but
No
okay,
problem.
other micro. Other macro, I think can be also, if I'm not mistaken, Miss, can be also unemployment, inflation rate, macam tu.
Okay, that's all. Thank you. See you.
Okay,
Next
thank you,
week.
Miss. Message.